And now let's shift our focus to another story that has grabbed headlines for the last many days. What really is happening in China? Remember, the world over there is concerned. Is China hiding the truth? Is China hiding the real numbers? And what really is the ground situation there? Remember, the hospitals there are overwhelmed. A lot of the crematoriums there have some very disturbing images that are being reported. And then there are experts who say that more than 60% of the population in China could be infected just in the next few months. Now, when they tell you this, remember, what they don't tell you is why today is China in a situation like this. Does this mean that the vaccination program that was undertaken in China has not been very effective? What about the very tall claims that some made on the Chinese vaccine? If they were effective, why are we looking at such disturbing images? Remember, all these images are coming in from the social media, where, Sanika, as you also join us with more details and inputs on this story, people are shocked and horrified to see these images. And Sanika, we must always underscore that China is a country that no one trusts, not even its own people. The reason why they say that this is just the tip of the iceberg, China is still hiding the real truth.
Now, Deepti, a few days back we keep getting these pictures in our newsroom through agencies and, and through some users in social media as well, of how the hospitals have been overwhelmed in China, how the dead bodies are piling up in China. And in fact, it's a very worrisome situation because China has been the epicenter of the COVID virus. Remember, a few years back, 3 years back to be exact, a couple of years back, when the same situation had come up, China had hidden facts, had not shared the data with the world, and we saw what happened in 2020, how the entire world was forced to go into a lockdown. Will the same be repeated is what the fear is among people. And now I have some data in my hand, Deepti, and questions are being raised over the vaccination program in China, how China has been very under-vaccinated, and probably the situation that is now in China is because of its very poor implementation of vaccine program, of the very poor, the quality of vaccines that China has. The quality of vaccines that have been made in China is also under question. Now, what we are getting to know is that the under-vaccinated population in China is the main reason for the surge in the COVID cases there. China is also not reporting the mild cases of COVID, so the numbers that are coming out of China could be much more than what is being reported before the world today. Now, what we can tell our viewers is that China has a higher vaccination rate than Hong Kong did at the time of the Omicron outbreak. But many people are vulnerable to infection, especially the elderly. Now, this is because China is sort of depending on the vaccines that were made in China and not the mRNA vaccine that has been proven to fight the deadly coronavirus very effectively around the world. So the quality of vaccines is under question. Now, China is considering 90% of its population has been vaccinated. Only around 60% have received a booster. So now, if you make a comparison, a person with an mRNA vaccine is considered completely vaccinated once they get a double dose. But if you use it with the same logic, if a Chinese vaccine needs to be administered 3 times to be considered completely vaccinated. So the effectiveness of Chinese vaccine is only if they get 3 shots. So this is one of the problems that the Chinese are facing. And China has been so overwhelmed by cases right now. It also is sort of indicative because of the number of beds they've had to increase. Now, with the numbers that I have right now, the National Health Commission has said that China has 10 intensive care beds for every 1 lakh people. Now, this is a figure from December 9th. Just before that, that is on November 22nd, there were 4 ICU beds for 1 lakh people. So now there has been a jump in the beds, the number has doubled, but it's still not enough for the kind of infections that China has been getting in the last few days. And remember, these COVID cases have risen tremendously and exponentially after the country was forced to open up because we saw massive protests across China over the zero COVID policy. We could imagine that the administration, they're panicked, sort of called off all the restrictions, and then with the opening up of China, we've had this rise in the number of cases in the country. So now China is in deep crisis, and what we see in China is only a lesson that we can take. India is better prepared. What Indian authorities are saying is that India is better prepared. We are highly vaccinated. Our vaccination coverage is excellent. So India needs not to panic, but we can't let our guard down, is what our government has also been telling us. So I think the only thing, the lessons we can take from China is we shouldn't let our guard down, but we should also focus on a booster dose.
Absolutely. So if you haven't taken a precaution dose, you must do that right away. And we've seen the vaccination numbers actually for the precaution dose, Sanika, actually see an uptick in the last few days. This is what the health ministry says. And just about China, one little fact as I thank you. China has reported 37 million COVID cases in a day. 37 million. This, remember, surpasses all the records that you have seen. The last record it had in January 2022, Sanika, was 4 million. So from 4 million to 37 million, this is according to a report in Bloomberg. And as we always say, you can't trust China. You cannot trust China. The reason why today the world is looking at this situation very closely, Sanika. For the moment, thank you.